Genshin Impact is a game with a lot of characters. At time of writing, there are 89 playable characters, all of whom have a distinct personality and backstory. There's no shortage of well-written arcs and side stories in this game. The narrative hits hard. You could say it has impact. Genshin Impact, in a game filled with so many incredible moments, you'd think it would be hard to pick a favorite character. But for me, there's no competition. Furina is hands down the best character. As the title of this video implies, I also think she's the strongest character. I don't mean in terms of her gameplay power, although that very well may be true too. I'm exclusively talking about in-universe narrative in this video. I'm not even arguing that her writing is the strongest in the game, although, again, that very well may be true. When I say the strongest character, I mean her personality, her arc, her literal character. Her actions in the internal narrative of the game itself make her the strongest character in the entire world of Teyvat.
I must show the people that there is nothing to worry about.
Teyvat's a big place. Claiming that Furina is the strongest might seem crazy to some of you. At a glance, dozens of other characters should be significantly stronger. Even a literal child has earned herself the moniker of strongest fighter. Not to mention the numerous gods and demigods in the world. Could Furina really beat them in a fight? No. Of course not. Some of these other characters fought in wars against the forces of darkness, or are currently engaged in conflicts of great importance. If you put Furina in the ring with most of the roster, she wouldn't last 3 minutes. Proclaiming that whoever wins the most fistfights must therefore be the strongest character is not necessarily true. This line of thinking confuses strength or power. Strength isn't something you achieve by punching harder than the other guy. That's what power is. Strength is far more nuanced than that. Let me take this somewhat meme-y quote from Rocky to explain what I mean. It's not about how hard you hit. It's about how hard you can get hit and keep moving forward. If you ask me, nobody has been hit harder or for as long as Furina has. Her endurance and resolve, as well as her comparative lack of power, are what make her, at least to me, unquestionably the strongest character in all of Genshin Impact. In order to go in depth with exactly what I mean, I'm going to need to spoil Furina's story. I'll also be spoiling the questlines of several other characters as well, namely Nahida's. So if you haven't completed Genshin Impact all the way through Fontaine, and want to experience this wonderful game free of knowledge, stop the video and add it to your watch later. Also, go ahead and leave me a like and a subscribe. With that said, let me start by talking about Furina's job in life, and what makes it so unbearably difficult. In the story, Furina is presented to the player as a god, as the Archon of Justice and Hydro, theoretically one of the 7 most powerful beings on the planet. When the player meets her, she comes off as larger than life. She's almost unapproachable. She carries a certain air about her. You can't help but think of her as nothing less than a god.
Fear is for insignificant cowards. I am a god, and I will never entertain the notion of such meaningless wariness. You can be rest assured, I see clearly your sincerity.
This is, of course, an act. Furina is not a god. She is a mere human, a pretender, tasked by the true Archon to play the role of goddess in order to protect the people of Fontaine from a horrifying prophecy.
I need you to play a role, that of the new Archon.
All Furina knows is that one day there will be a trial of epic scale, and only after the conclusion of this trial will she be allowed to stop the act. She has absolutely no idea how long it's going to be before that fateful day will come. When it does, she'll finally be free, but until then, she's trapped in her role.
So, how long am I going to have to play this role? To accomplish this mission, you will have to stay on the stage for many, many years.
Her entire purpose in life is to trick the people of Fontaine into believing she's a god. Luckily, she is a phenomenal actress. She has managed to deceive everyone for 500 years after all. But just because her acting is indistinguishable from reality, that doesn't mean it comes naturally to her. Her true self is modest, meekish, and insecure.
Calm down, Furina. Think. What do the people want? How would they imagine a god to speak and act?
But gods are radiant, flawless, and confident. And so Furina must shed her natural inclinations to embody something that is her total opposite. It's not just that she can't show weakness. She can't show herself at all, in any capacity. Her entire life is a lie.
You must begin a never-ending masquerade. You must never let anyone suspect your identity.
For 500 years, Furina is forced to shed her very identity, to conform to the role of a god and the divine personality that must come with it, whatever it takes to fool the people. If they ever suspect her of lying, ever figure out the truth, it will mean their doom. An unthinkable worst-case scenario. If she fails, she will have endured 500 long years for absolutely no reason.
If you can keep it up, then I shall have my way of defying this prophecy. But should your identity be revealed, then all hope will be lost.
No other chance of escape exists. This talk about being trapped with no escape in sight might remind you of another Archon, Nahida. Wasn't her imprisonment far more difficult than Furina's? Furina had full reign of the land. She could travel, she could eat, she could experience the joys of life. Nahida was literally stuck in a prison cell. That kind of life is no doubt difficult and arduous. But there is one significant difference between her and Furina that make Furina's situation much more unenviable. Nahida is a god. Furina is not. Nahida is blessed with divine insight, godly powers, and a definitively non-human perspective on life and the passage of time. She experiences everything in a way no human could ever really understand. Furina does not have these luxuries. Her only gift is a curse in disguise: immortality.
But Furina is only human, isn't she? Even though she has had a long life, her mind is no stronger than that of any other ordinary human being. I cannot begin to fathom what she has had to endure. It must have been torture for her.
Eternal life for a non-eternal being defies the natural order of the world. A mere human should never be forced to live this long. As a human, the years do not pass Furina by quickly the way it would for any god. She is agonizingly aware of every passing second.
So lonely. Just how much longer? I'm Hundreds of years must have passed by now. Perhaps the show must go on for hundreds more. I never imagined that it would hurt so much.
The years may in fact be extra long for her. Humans are naturally social creatures. We seek relationships, communities, a sense of connection. From an outside perspective, it may seem like these are things Furina has. She is the Archon of Fontaine, adored by all. She has an entourage around her at all times. But it's superficial. She's surrounded by swaths of citizens and supporters, yet she is unable to form deep connections to any of them. The nature of the role she must play forbids her from ever getting attached, ever opening up, ever showing weakness. For any human, this is nothing short of torture.
It's been 500 years, and all along, she's been playing her part in the most unimaginably long, unbearably lonely, and agonizingly painful opera of all time.
Furina's ability to withstand it for so long is almost superhuman. Think about Furina's relationship with Clorand, for example. She is essentially a protector, guarding Furina and staying by her side as a sort of bodyguard. Their close proximity should make them something akin to friends. Maybe they are, but consider this. By the time Clorand was born, Furina had already been the Archon for close to 500 years. How many bodyguards have come and gone in that time? How many friends has Furina watched grow up, grow old, and die? It's very human to be afraid of being left behind, of saying goodbye to a loved one. If you're unlucky enough to have experienced this kind of loss for yourself, you know how painful it can be. Even losing non-human companions hurts like death. I know of many who would rather switch places with the departed, just so they don't have to be the one who remains alive and alone. As far as I could tell, Furina never has any dialogue to directly indicate if this is also how she feels. All we can do is speculate. But whatever side of the coin she falls on, she's undeniably in tremendous pain over the deaths of others.
What was meant to happen did happen after all. Everyone's dead. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry.
So why doesn't she just leave it all behind? Why is she so determined to stay in character? Well, that's where the real cruelty of her situation comes into play. The aforementioned prophecy. If she ever breaks character, ever falters in her resolve, ever shows a single moment of weakness to anyone, the nation she watches over will be destroyed. Millions of people will die, and it will be her fault.
She did very well. If she had let her resolve falter even once in these 5 centuries, Fontaine would have been doomed to the most tragic fate.
I feel stressed out when I have to watch over my sister's dog. I can't even begin to imagine being held responsible for the lives and deaths of an entire nation. It's an astronomically unfair burden to be saddled with. Even so, Furina carries it willingly.
If there were scales, with all the people of Fontaine on one side and my pain on the other, is it not obvious where the scales should tilt?
She just will not let any amount of stress or mental anguish get in the way of her duty. I think by now you get the point. Existence for Furina was nothing short of horrible. Trivial joys like sweets and the arts may have served as a distraction, but nothing was ever going to suppress the torment of being alive. Even so, through all the pain, through all the suffering for 500 years, Furina endured. No matter how bad things got, no matter how shattered her mental state became, she never gave up. If strength is measured by your ability to keep moving forward through overwhelming resistance, how could Furina not be the strongest in all Teyvat? She remained steadfast in her duty until the bitter end.
In my capacity as Chief Justice, I shall now render judgment on Furina's misrepresentation of herself as the Archon of Fontaine. As a human who knowingly deceived her fellow citizens, Furina is guilty.
On reflection, with the context of the whole story, this is probably the most horrific and tragic moment in the entire game. It's not until after her guilty verdict that we as a player learn the specifics of Furina's role as Divine Actress. As we've seen, she knew nothing about the gods' true plan. Her only insight for the past 5 centuries was that she must pretend to be the Archon at all costs. If the population ever learned the truth, they would all die. Learn the truth they did. As far as Furina knows, she failed. She spent hundreds of years suffering to ensure the safety of her people, only for it all to be ripped away in a matter of moments. The people learn the truth, the prophecy comes to pass, and the nation dies.
In the end, the people will all be dissolved into the waters, and only Furina will remain, weeping on her throne.
Of course, even though Furina was ignorant, the player knows what's really going on. The nation isn't really dead. The people are all still alive and well, and the prophecy was only sort of fulfilled. The real god of Hydro planned this whole charade from the start. I'll never forget the way Furina looked when she discovered her people were not all corpses at the bottom of the sea. I bet I'm the only one who feels this way, but this moment has always reminded me of the climax to The Shawshank Redemption. Both protagonists are freed from the burden of captivity after years of unfair imprisonment. It's a wonderfully joyous moment. For Furina, this means the start of a new chapter in her life. No more responsibilities, no more acting, no more pain. So, with the impending disaster of the prophecy behind her, what will Furina choose to do with her newfound freedom? She suffered 500 years of torment. How does one even begin to move forward after enduring something like that? It turns out, adjusting to a new life is much easier said than done.
I was just out on a shopping trip. I ran out of macaroni, so I went to grab a few more bags. I used to have a much wider range of choices when it came to food, but now I'm finding that simple, traditional home cooking can be quite delicious too.
But I think that's a story best saved for another day. If you'd like to see my take on Furina's after story, let me know in the comments. Also, leave a like and please subscribe to my channel. If you liked this video, there's a good chance you'd like some of the other stuff I've made. For example, this video on why you should play Zenless Zone Zero. In the future, I could totally see myself making some more videos on Genshin, but I also love survival horror and action RPGs, as well as anime, and I want to make videos on those kinds of things too. I hope to see you stick around for that. Thank you so much for watching. Have a wonderful day, everyone.